There's a lot of finance channels out there talking about the best ways of making money, whether it's going to be drop shipping, AI, high ticket closing. And so what I want to do is deep dive into a strategic step by step on exactly what you need to do to go from zero to hero and the fastest ways of making money in 2026. Number one, we're going to quote Ray Dalio here, one of the largest investors and most successful investors in the world, that says you need to find your game. And I really like this because a lot of people talk about the passion profession merge and follow your dreams, do something you're passionate about. But I actually think that's really poor advice. I think the quickest way to hate something is to try and make money from it. Like, I love mountaineering, and for those that have followed me, you'll know that I'm really trying to do the 7 summits, starting with Kilimanjaro back when I was 18 and finishing with Mount Everest, hopefully by the age of 35. And I've climbed 5 of the 7 mountains, and I'm passionate about it. I love disappearing. I love the mountains. I love the feeling of insignificance. I love the big picture thinking. The worst thing I can think about is trying to make money from mountaineering. Well, what if you're a artist or an aspiring artist where you know the odds of success are so incredibly low? Why would you want to start a profession out of your passion? Instead, let's do what Ray Dalio says and follow your talent. Find your game. So your talent is, what is it that is useful to the world that you happen to be talented at? And a great example of this is if you're a great communicator, if you're great at sales, if you're great at maths, if you're great at marketing, if you're great at attracting and converting that talent into monetization, that's going to be really good for you. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give you the best talent pool that you can pour into that's going to make you the most money going into this year. The next thing is developing this skill. And there's going to be 2 ways of doing this. The first one is a job. And I really want to deep dive into this because I hate it in the personal development world where they go job, J-O-B, just over broke, as if it's an insult going to do a job. Well, what do you think I'm doing when I turn up every single day? What do you think it is that I'm doing when I get home? I've got jobs when I wake up, jobs when I get to the gym, jobs when I get to work, when I have to serve different levels of people. And one of the fastest ways that you can actually accelerate your journey is by working for other people. I can think of multiple individuals that have come to work from me, have absolutely rinsed me for everything I've got in terms of knowledge, and then gone and set up their businesses and doing really well. And I'm not saying that as a negative. I think that's a really smart play. They came and added loads of value to me. They learned what they need. They made me a load of money. They made themselves money, and now they've gone and done their separate thing. And I think that's amazing. And I know there's people that work for me right now that I have no doubt will set up their own gig, whether that's in property, business, media, or anything else. I think it's one of the fastest ways to do it. And so if you can get yourself in front of an entrepreneur that is where you want to be, and you can learn from them, develop the skills to see if you've got what it takes, then definitely do that. Now, when you're developing yourself, you have to realize that it's an investment of your time or it's an investment of your money. That's obvious in the investment in time. And I'll be honest, if I could go back 15 years, I think that's the biggest mistake that I made. I wish I'd worked for somebody for 2, 3, 4, 5 years that was somebody that I aspired to be, that I looked up to, so I could accelerate my journey. Because I'm telling you, my first 5 years in business was so difficult, and I could have learned through the school of hard knocks from somebody else's mistakes rather than my own. Which brings me to option 2, is investing in your education. And for me, it's all about property. It's all about investment in business and really accelerating. And by the way, if you're ready to invest in your education, you want to accelerate your personal development journey in business, mindset, and of course property, put tips in the comment and book in your free one-to-one strategy session. But if I could leave you with a line, it's work to learn, not work to earn. It's really important that you develop your skill set and you learn before you earn, you develop yourself, and then you can remove your L plates. Number 3, nurture your brand. This is where perception is reality. You've got to put yourself out there and think about who you are, what your USPs are, your unique selling points, and what you can bring to the world. Now, what's really important when you're developing your brand is that it's not about, I need to come across as a leader, I need to come across as X, Y, Z. And I think that's the challenge. When I say perception is reality, you can look at Instagram and be like, oh my God, the Lamborghinis, the girls, the bodies, the holidays, that's what life's about, right? Well, in a way, that's kind of exactly what I mean. That perception has become their reality, or your reality of them at least. But the reality is, the person that's leaving the Instagram lifestyle, the Lamborghinis, the girls, the holidays, the villas, of course that's not their life day to day. Maybe that's the perception they want to give. But what I'm actually talking about is, what brand do you want to bring? What do you bring to the table? So for example, when you watch me, I like to be a leader through knowledge. I like to think I know what I'm talking about. I've done over 1,000 deals. And so the way that I build my brand is through irrefutable evidence that I do what I say I do. I'm not particularly a flashy guy. You can see the way I dress. And yes, you'll notice some things like I have a Rolex or my laptop, but it's really, I think people notice it second to a lot of little things. Like if I look through the comments on my videos, it's more about the knowledge given or a debate that I've created rather than the watch, but there'll be the odd comment there. So perception is reality, and you need to work on nurturing that brand. Now, I'll give a great example of this. Public speaking. This ties all three here of following my talent, developing the skill, and nurturing my brand. So a few years back, I've got an education company, and across my group, we make about 10 to 12 million a year now. That's everything in my property-related businesses. In my speaking in particular, whether that's YouTube, education, speaking from stage, selling, I probably make about 3 to 5 million on the average year. If I go back to my first 2 years of doing this, I knew that I was able to communicate effectively. I knew that I needed to develop my skill of speaking on stage. And so I decided to go and work for somebody else. Now, here's the interesting thing, right? You can always tell a rich person from a poor person based on their mindset towards the development of their skill. So I didn't earn money. In fact, I paid to learn how to communicate effectively. And I'm not saying I'm the best communicator in the world, but I'm a damn sight better than I was 10 years ago. And here's the funny thing, I was already a millionaire through my businesses, and then I went and worked for somebody for free. And I say free, in my first 2 years, I drove up and down the country, spent thousands in petrol, the car, the insurance, hotel rooms, and over a 2-year period, I got paid £11,000. £11,000, 5,500 a year. And I reckon I made that company 2 to 3 million pounds, and I didn't ask for a penny of it. I paid my dues. I worked to learn, not to earn. I developed my character and my skill set, and I became known as the person that had the knowledge. Which brings me to number 4. Take risks, but protect the downside. See, the thing is, I was willing to take the risk to build my brand in somebody else's company. I was willing to develop myself and push more and more and more and more. And in the meantime, I started developing my personal brand. Now, the reality is, the risk was that too much of my brand and effort was building up this company, which it was. And they knew where I was going. I wanted speaking gigs. I wanted opportunities. But I decided to start building my personal brand to de-risk myself, and so that when I was ready to launch, which I'll talk about in a second, my downside was heavily mitigated. Whether it worked here, 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 or here, one of them was going to come off. But it's important, especially in the early days, that if you're not willing to take the risk, then you'll never reap the reward. If you live an average life and you take average action and average risk, don't be shocked that you get average reward. You have to do an unimaginable amount of effort. You have to take the risk. You have to go all in and take an uncommon approach to the level of effort you take in order to get an uncommon level of results. And you have to realize that that common sense approach isn't that common in the real world nowadays. Number 5 is write down what doesn't work. I think this is really important. Everyone focuses on the wins. Everyone focuses on the upside. What went well, what went well, what went well, but what didn't go well. And what I mean by this is I have learned more from what's gone wrong in my journey than what's gone right. Because if I do a phone call and let's say it's a high ticket close, let's say you come to me, you've got £250,000, you want to work with my business, and I end up communicating effectively and I close you and I make 20 grand from working with you. Great, high five, let's celebrate, everything's amazing. But what about the 20, 30, 40, 50 people that I didn't close? So sales, for example, is a game of rejection, right? And even if I'm a really good closer, I might close at 25% consistently, and that is a very solid closer, which means I get rejected. For every yes, I get 3 rejections. So I can learn at least 3 times the amount, from the rejection than the win. But actually what you find is you can learn a multiple of that factor from every single loss, because finding out why somebody didn't work for you, was it a gap in knowledge? Was it a gap in experience? Was it the way I communicated? I'm quite colloquial, so did I swear a little bit too much? What is it that I did where I engaged with my perfect customer avatar and they chose not to work with me? So focus and write down what didn't work, and I promise you will learn and develop the most with it. Number 6 is getting obsessed with your first 100K. And this is where I really want to write some things down and get you with pen and paper in hand so you can develop this. You have to be obsessed with your first 100K, because everything in life starts with the 100K. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you invested £5,000 and you got a 10% return, amazing. If you got a 10% return in a year, that is a staggering return, but it's still £500, and it's just not enough to make a meaningful amount of money. And in today's world, and a lot of the finance channels, people are obsessed with the passive income, when actually you need to be obsessed with the active income. You have to work hard enough to not have to work hard. And the reality is, I've never seen it more than today in property, in business, in investment, where everyone's obsessed with working from a beach and chilling out. And it's like, where did graft stop? And this is the reality, and I'll say the line again. You have to work hard enough to not have to work hard. You have to focus on the active, develop the skill so you can invest the active money and get the passive returns. A great book that I've read, and I read hundreds of books every single year, is The Richest Man in Babylon. And it's a story about how you should never spend your earned income. And in short, it doesn't matter if you're a mechanic or you're a pilot or you're whatever it is out there. You can earn the money you're earning, but you should have the same philosophy. You work hard to develop your skill set. Your skill set broadens, and the better you are, the higher the skill you are, the more valuable you are to the world. And you use that money to earn your gold. And then you don't spend it. You live as frugally as possible, and then you invest the gold and it produces silver. And then you live your life on your silver. And if you want to create a real legacy, you invest your silver and live off the bronze, and it will last a lifetime and many lifetimes to come. So in short, you want to develop this and get obsessed with your first 100K, because 100K becomes 110, becomes 121, becomes 133, and it compounds and grows and grows and grows. And there's this famous graph out there that if you invested 10,000 a year and you grew at 7%, which is the S&P 500 average, the first 100K would take you something like 7.8 years. The next 100K, so 100K to 200K, would take you something like 5 years, and then the next 100K, boom, 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 and you get to 400 to 500K, and that final 100K, 4 to 500, would only take you 2.5 years. And that time horizon gets shorter and shorter and shorter, and faster and faster and faster, but ultimately, every single one of us can retire a millionaire or multimillionaire. You just need your first 100. Easier said than done, right? So this is where I'm going to nick a model from somebody else, and this is called the growth formula. It's by a guy called Mark Tilbury. I'll put a picture of him up here. Strongly recommend you check out his channel. And here's where it is. I'll shorthand it, but you can watch the video for yourself. G is gain control of your finances. There are the 3 M's of wealth, which is make, manage, and multiply. And in my experience, people can develop the skill to multiply money and make money. Where people really struggle, because it's the boring one, is managing your funds effectively. I promise you that if you are the person that earns 30 grand a year right now and you find yourself broke every month, it's a you problem, not how much you're earning. It really is important. I know people that are earning £1,000 a month and they're still saving money. And you might go, yeah, right. And when I was earning £1,000 a month, my lifestyle accommodated it. I didn't try and rent a 2-bed flat in the city centre, funny enough, right? And so gaining control of your finances is really, really important. R is rooting your investments, and Mark says this is all about where are your investments going. And even if it's a small £10 a month, it's getting used to the discipline of actually investing. O is optimizing tax management, and I know this is really stupid, but a majority of you, when you're starting to make money, it will be through owning business, and you need to really develop the skill of understanding that the tax man is coming for you. And tax avoidance is definitely the game you want to play, but there is a line between tax avoidance and tax evasion. Tax avoidance is perfectly legal and you should absolutely be playing the game as effectively as possible. Tax evasion, not so much. Now you might be going, yeah, but Jamie, the more you earn, the more tax you should pay. Yes, I actually do agree with that, and trust me, you will, don't worry about it. But I promise you, when you're earning 10 million a year or whatever amount a year you want to earn, you're not going to want to give 50% away to the tax man. It's not the game you want to play. W is weeding out the debts, and there's two ideas around debt management here. So if you have a stack of 10 different credit cards, there's the snowball effect and there's the avalanche effect. Now, if you're Dave Ramsey, the old guy over in America, I like a lot of what he says, but I disagree with what he says around this. He uses the snowball effect. And the snowball effect is when you get the list of your debts and you list them from the smallest debt to the largest debt. And you pay off each of them, you make minimum payments on, and then you pay off the smallest debt, and then the next one and the next one. And the reason this works is psychologically, it's really good to have a win. But the people that watch my channel, they're not really the average person, and you're probably not the average person watching this right now. Typically, I attract an audience that's slightly more sophisticated, slightly more intelligent, and so you can understand numbers rather than the psychological, well done, you paid off your £50 credit card that has 400% loan on it, right? So the avalanche approach is where you actually list the debts from the highest interest rate down to the lowest. And so it might be that your highest interest rate is a £2,000 credit card that you're now getting charged 30% a year. I would pay that down in chunks as fast as possible. So there's two different approaches. The snowball effect is very well documented, and it works because it's a psychological impact. And on the other side is the avalanche, where you're targeting the highest interest. I prefer the avalanche approach. And this is where the game comes in. T is to tap into the side hustle. I know, right? Why has it taken so long to get to the side hustle? Well, because if you don't do the things like developing your skill set, building your brand, working to learn rather to earn, and doing all the things we've gone through, this is wasted energy. Now, tapping into the side hustle is really important, and I like to call it the side hustle, and I hate to call it the side hustle all at the same time. The reason I like to call it the side hustle is all about going back to number 4, taking risks, but protecting your downside. It is really important that you don't go, I'm really excited about this. I have an education program, and I show people how to go from complete beginner in property businesses in particular, and show them how to earn 100K within 12 months. But I'm really clear that it is a journey. 100K in 12 months does not mean 10K next month, and then 10K the next month. And then it doesn't work like that. It's nothing, 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 nothing. First deal comes in, 5 grand in the bank, nothing. And then it builds up and it builds up. And so the reason I like calling it a side hustle is it is not your main hustle. Your main hustle is to protect yourself. The job looks after today. And I always say your 9 to 5 is to protect today. Your 5 to 9 is protect tomorrow. Okay, and it's really important you understand that your 9 to 5 is add a huge amount of value to people, your boss, whatever job you're in, add as much as you can, and that looks after your bills today. That should pay you today. But then 5 to 9, work on the hustle, the grind, your development to pay for the you of tomorrow, maybe your kids in the future. So your side hustle then becomes your main hustle. And by the way, if you've watched this far and you're interested in property and business being that side hustle, make sure to subscribe and immerse yourself in all the videos that I've got on this and the more to come out there. And if you're serious about making this year the best year yet, put tips in the comments and we can book in a free one-to-one strategy session on how I can get you there over the next 12 months and get you from 0 to 100K in your property business. But you need to make this your side hustle. And for me, I would look at it as, when does it become your main hustle? I would look at 3 months in a row where it has been equal or more than your main job's income. Only then would I start to wind down on the current job. And even then I wouldn't quit it, by the way. I'd go to your boss and go, hey, I've got this going on. This is my long-term game. How would you like the idea of me cutting down to 4 days a week? And then 3 days a week, and then we shake hands and call it a day, and maybe I can start training the next person to replace me. And the final thing I really want to say about that transition is how you go out is how you'll be remembered. And it's really important that I've had it so many times where people have worked for me for years, been genuinely decent people, worked really hard, and then when they've given in their notice, become a really shit version of themselves, and that's how they'll always be remembered. And the problem is, I've had those people come and ask for jobs back, and I'd never have them again. And I've had people that have been all right people when they've been here, decent people, and continued all the way, and I'd happily offer them a job tomorrow. So just remember that once your bread was buttered in that location, and remember that for the long term. It's really important because those people will give you the contacts there. Finally, H, heighten your self-discipline. This is where it really gets interesting, and this is where the final mistakes come in. I've seen it in the property world all the time, where usually young guys, if I'm honest, they come in, they've never made more than 20 grand a year, and now they're making 100 grand, 200 grand a year, and they're acting like it's real money. And it's a lot of money. I'm not knocking it. If you want a middle class, a strong middle class lifestyle, it's amazing. But I see people earning 100, 120 grand in their first year, and I don't know why it's this car. It always is this car, and they go and get an Audi R8 on lease. And I don't know what it is about that. It's a cool car, but I always say to them, like, stop acting like you've got money. And I tell you right now, the day that you start investing in things like that is the day that I realize that you're trying to live your life for other people. Nobody that earns 10 grand a month needs to get an Audi R8. I'm sorry, like, you need to work and live like you're poor. And until you're silver can pay for the Audi R8, you can't fucking pay for it. If you can buy your car outright twice a month, you can afford it. And if you can't, don't fucking buy it. All right? So get that discipline in place until your side hustle becomes your main hustle. Now, look, you can do that in any hustle you want. For me, 2026 is all about taking full advantage of the changes in government, in legislation, and the opportunity that brings in property. And I genuinely believe it is the best way of making money right now. So if that's you and you want to get involved, you don't need prior experience, you don't need loads of money, you don't need loads of time, but it does take commitment. And if you're ready to commit, put tips in the comment. I'll send you a link, and we can book in a free one-to-one strategy session to see if you're the sort of person that I can go all in on 2026 and beyond.